Thinking as that responsorial psalm was being sung, I need to find a way to put that on my bathroom mirror. A beautiful responsorial psalm. But that's not what was standing out to me as I prepared for today. There are a couple of interesting things that Jesus mentions in today's gospel. To start, one of the commentaries I referenced says that last line about St. John the Baptist being Elijah can be understood in this way. That John the Baptist was not Elijah come again in person. We don't believe in reincarnation, but by virtue of his mission. So John the Baptist was Elijah by virtue of his mission to prepare the way of the Lord, to prepare hearts to receive the God of Israel. So it's very interesting, in light of that, the way Jesus describes the kingdom of heaven in this part of the gospel. So he says, from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffers violence, and the violent are taking it by force. So I found it interesting that even though it may sound like he's describing the same reality in two similar ways, rather, it's actually probably describing two totally different things, almost. So when Jesus says the kingdom of heaven suffers violence, that can be understood as the attack against the things of the Lord that lead to the Lord. Another way we understand that is spiritual warfare. The action of the devil's minions, all the fallen angels, as well as people. As well as people whose hearts are twisted toward evil, who try to thwart the Lord and the action of the Lord. Okay, so when Jesus says the violent, so that's one thing. When Jesus says the violent are taking the kingdom of heaven by force, that can be understood in a positive way. Because the violence he seems to be referencing is a violence that we can employ toward ourselves. I'll explain what that means. Toward our own sinfulness. Just know that there's a history of how this has been done, how this has been lived out in our church throughout the past 2 millennia. And to our modern sensibilities, it has taken some pretty extreme, pretty intense forms. So you might have heard this word growing up. Basically what I'm talking about is mortification. So imposing some sort of bodily penance on ourselves for the sake of overcoming a certain sin, or for the sake of making reparation for sins. Some people really kind of gravitate towards this, which is perfectly fine. There's a tradition of it in our church. And you can look to how people have employed this in their own lives throughout the tradition of the church for ideas of how you might live it out yourself. Some of the ways that it's been lived out in history are like wearing a hair shirt, to irritate your body a little bit to make reparation for sin, or to try to chastise, to try to curb those desires of the flesh. If I can take this little irritation, maybe I won't reach out for that thing that I really desire. One of the ways that I've heard people do that kind of nowadays is just putting a little rope around their chest, right above their stomach. It's a little bit of irritation throughout the day. Some people have walked around with little pebbles in their shoe to do the same thing. Some people take cold showers. I cannot take cold showers. I don't know how they do it. So there's many things that you can do. But the point is to overcome a sinful habit or to make reparation for sin. Ultimately, in the midst of that, the thing to keep in mind always is that our lives are not simply about overcoming sin or making reparation for sin. Our lives are about growing in union with God and having that desire for union increase throughout our lives, more and more, so that we can share his love more and more, with more and more freedom in each and every moment. So to do violence against our sinfulness, so as to take the kingdom of heaven by violence, should never confuse us about the goal of our lives. Attaining heaven. The danger in the midst of all this is to think, because there's an effort on our part, is to think that we do it alone. We do not do it alone. The Lord does want us to strive with all of our heart, all of our mind, all of our soul, all of our strength. He wants us to strive to make it to heaven. He also wants us to recognize that that cannot be done without him. He does not want us to think we're doing it alone. I think St. Paul is going to help me say the point best. Right? St. Paul says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So in light of everything I just said, that includes making it to heaven. I can do all things, including making it to heaven, not because of my own strength and power, but because of Jesus, the one who gives me strength.